So, an ice skating rink on my driveway. Hmm. Yes, I can.
Mics are on.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening. Tonight, we are calling to order the first of two public hearings at 6:30. I also just want to note two things before we get started. We have a member joining remotely on Zoom, Julia Campbell. And so later in the meeting, if we take any votes, it'll be a roll call vote. And I also want to mention that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded by HW Cam and can be watched on YouTube. So the first thing we have on the agenda is the public hearing for school choice for the 25-26 school year. Mr. Tracy.
Thank you. Just want to give a quick overview. As we do annually, we are required by state law to vote for school choice annually before June 1st. And we generally do it in January so that we can get the process moving in early February. It takes us about a month or 5 weeks or so to keep the lottery open, make sure people have notice, et cetera. So this year we have similar numbers from previous years. We will be graduating out 11 students this year who are in the choice program. Then the next biggest number will be the current junior class, which has 18. Numbers have fluctuated across the past probably 10 years now, gone up and down, mostly hovering around 10 or 11 on the average. So these are the current numbers that are in our buildings, and they're based again on the vote of the school committee is specifically to either have school choice or not have school choice. And then the principals will look at openings generally at the secondary level, because our elementary schools are jam-packed. There's no real open seats at the elementary level. So any openings generally occur at the secondary level, 6 through 12, which is what you have represented here. And then certainly my recommendation for school choice is to continue the school choice program. It is a revenue source for the district. It continues to fill seats as they become available. Generally at the 9th grade is where you see the most kids entering the program. But as you can see, there are kids. There have been kids in 6th grade. There have been kids in 7th grade. We actually have one 3rd grader who's a longtime choice student because of what they call the sibling rule. The law allows for if one child gets in, it basically opens the door for any other child in that family, which makes sense when they have to drive their own kids to school, et cetera. So these are the numbers at the secondary. We feel they'll continue to stay about the same. Mr. Menegoni knows there's 6 coming up from the 8th grade into the 9th grade, so he knows his numbers of seats will be fewer. But again, the principals will determine that as they figure out their schedules in February.
Thank you. So as part of the public hearing, we can hear comments or questions from anyone in the room. Anyone on the committee have questions or comments? How about anybody joining us in the room tonight? Looks like no. How about on Zoom? Is there anybody on Zoom?
There's nobody on Zoom.
Okay. So that closes the public hearing for school choice at 6:34 PM. The next public hearing we have is on the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District fiscal year 26 budget. So I'm opening this public hearing on the budget at 6:34 PM. And I believe
Vinny
Vinny's
will
presenting.
take it over from here, yep.
Sorry, hold on.
Gonna jump off. It's always the right time for an update, right?
Thanks, Windows. Take your time. We're ahead of schedule for public hearings. No worries. By 1 minute. Any of the protocols? I can just read them. It's okay.
I'll just open them up on this main screen.
I'll do it, yeah.
Here he is. Dropped out. Did it unplug or just kick you out?
When I plug in, it doubles my screen, so I had to unplug it to open it. It's not opening. Come on. Okay, sorry about that. So thanks for joining us tonight. We are here to review for the first public hearing on the superintendent's tentative FY26 budget recommendation. Now, for those of you who were here last night, today in the audience, and maybe at home listening, tonight's public hearing is based on the last iteration of the budget that the school committee has seen. That was on January 2nd, and it is our approved tentative budget. Later on tonight at the full meeting, I will be updating these numbers a little bit, which is what we presented yesterday at the quintuple board meeting. So I'm going to run through some of our major budget highlights and then go over some of the numbers from a high-level view. And sorry, I got a little bit of a cold, so I'm struggling breathing at the same time. So year over year, one of the biggest things we've seen is our growth in our revenues. From FY25 to FY26, excluding our town assessments and our E&D, we're seeing growth of just under $400,000, which represents a 5.7% increase. And this really is what we like to see. We like to see our revenues outpacing the growth of our expenditures. because that ultimately means less of a tax burden to the community. Some of the major growth we're seeing is around our state aid for our circuit breaker reimbursement, our regional transportation revolving fund, and our Chapter 70 base aid is where majority of those increases year over year is what we're seeing. From the other side, from our expenditures, the biggest challenge we faced in FY26 revolved around our salary cost increases. For FY26, our salaries have increased upwards of 8.8%, which equates to a $2.3 million increase. If you compare this to FY25, our total town assessments only went up roughly $1 million. So just our salaries alone are nearly double what our overall budget increase was last year for the town assessments. So that really is the biggest challenge we faced for FY26. Those increases are the results of all of our collective bargaining agreements being renegotiated. The teachers, office personnel, custodians, ESPs, and food service are driving those costs. Next up is our increase in our out-of-district costs. For FY26, we are predicting an increase of roughly $517,000. Our out-of-district costs can vary year over year based on our student needs. This $517,000 covers both our out-of-district tuition increases and the out-of-district transportation costs. Just relatively speaking, it's about a $250,000 increase on both sides, the tuitions and the transportation. We are excited about the next one. We are asking for a new investment to hire 2 new additional STEM teachers at the elementary level. This is costing roughly $209,000. The 2 elementary STEM teachers will be split between the 3 elementary schools, approximately 0.7 at each school, and will really enhance the STEM program at the elementary level. I am also happy to announce that for FY26, it is the 5th year in a row we are contributing and increasing our OPEB contribution. I believe, again, 5 years ago, we started our OPEB contribution, and since then, we've contributed over $2 million. For FY26, our annual total will be $300,000, and I think says a lot about us taking our OPEB liability serious and trying to lower it overall over the past few years. Next, we are asking for an additional $30,000 for new curriculum and workbooks, both for our ELA program and the math program. We do have some reductions to our staffing. Whenever we add new staffing in the district, we always try to look in other areas of the budget and around the district to make reductions to offset some of those increases. One of the areas we looked at was within our literacy program at the elementary school. For FY25, each elementary school has approximately 2.6 literacy ESPs. For FY26, we're reducing each building down to a 2.0, so that's a 0.6 reduction at each of the 3 elementary schools for a total of approximately 1.8. That is saving us just below $50,000. Every year, there are some savings from retirements. This varies year to year depending on who we have retire, what position they are, and where they fall in the salary schedule. But historically speaking, when we have a teacher retire, they're usually deeper in the salary schedule, and when we replace them, we try to hire someone who's lower on the salary schedule, which ultimately results in some savings. For FY26, we're incorporating a $91,000 reduction for our retirements. We are also seeing a reduction to our debt service payments. For FY26, it's a combination of 2 things. We have a lower principal payment based off of our FY25 paydowns. So for FY25, we paid down approximately $1.3 million of our overall debt. Therefore, we have lower principal in FY26, which then lowers our interest, and we got a reduced interest rate compared to FY25. The combination of the 2 is resulting in a reduction of $153,000 as it relates to our debt service payments. The last item here is our biggest item, our biggest reduction year over year. From FY25 to FY26, we are seeing a reduction to our E&D offsets of 1.5 million. This really is what is driving our ability to not need an override for FY26. If you see here, those salary costs of 2.3 million, the main way we are paying for that is from our E&D offsets. So it is helping us for FY26, but this will be something that we have to continuously look at throughout this year and before we go to build the FY27 budget. Yep.
Thanks, Vinny. Just for those that are maybe watching at home and in the audience, could you go through the acronyms and just define what those are? And if it's not
Of course.
clear, just
Yep.
a brief explanation.
Yep. So E&D stands for excess and deficiency. For those who may listen to the towns, it's kind of their version of free cash. So at the end of every year, for every year we have a budget. I'm just saying it's $40,000. If at the end of the year we only spend 40 million. If at the end of the year we only spend 39 million, in theory we have an extra $1 million at the end of the year. That falls to our E&D account, otherwise known as kind of your savings or your residual balance at the end of the year. When that happens, there's state law that says if you hit a certain threshold, you have to return it to the towns. We choose to do it in the form of our budget process and enter it as a revenue line within our budget. Because it's such a wild card, we really try to use offsets, really capital items to kind of offset that E&D, because E&D can vary so much year over year. You really don't know how much you're gonna end the year with until practically June. So because of that, you really wanna try to use any savings you have for the prior year for capital items for kind of one-time expenditures. That's what we have historically done, I believe, the past 3 or 4 years. This year, we are not doing that. We are lowering our overall cost to do business and the cost to the communities. Does that help?
Yeah, just some of the other acronyms
Oh,
that you have
sorry.
listed here as well. OOD,
STEM is
STEM, OPEB, ELA. I want to make sure everybody is on the
Science,
same page.
technology, engineering, mathematics. OPEB is other post-employment benefits. So when an individual retires, when we have an employee who retires, one of the benefits we offer them is health insurance for them and their spouse and eligible dependents for the rest of their lives. So that's a future liability. So we have actuarials come in and say, because you've guaranteed this benefit to an employee, you have a liability in the future. So that really hurts us when it comes to our bond rating, when it comes to our overall financial picture. So what the best practice is to stop putting money away now and pay for those benefits, so when the future comes, you have the money to fund it. Do I have any other acronyms in there? ELA is English Language Arts. ESP is Educational Support Professionals, otherwise known as teaching assistants or paraprofessionals. Did I get them all?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Just without going into it, I would say probably 3 years off the top of my head. It's the combination of having expenditures left at the year, over budgeting, and receiving more revenue. So the state might put out a number right now that says next year we're going to give the regional school district $1 million in Chapter 70. They haven't finalized their budget till later on in the year after we finalize ours. So maybe when they go to finalize theirs, they come in and say, we're actually going to give you 1.1 million. So we get an extra $100,000. We can't use that because we didn't put it in our budget, and it falls to E&D. So there's two sides of it. It's the additional revenues you receive, and it's the lack of expenditures that you spend.
Is the details of that made public? The line items that accumulate to the amount that's in year?
Yeah, at the end of every year, I give a presentation that has the amounts in there. So I say how much we underspent the budget and how much revenues we received over. But that is added to the prior year and the prior year So what I detail out is the additions to the account, not the historic going back to the whole way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Just one comment. Given, oops, given the enormity of that one major rise in the budget of the salaries, I think it's worth saying that, to the degree we haven't already said it, that it was an intentional strategy to become competitive with peer schools in our adjoining towns, because otherwise we were going to experience continuing brain drain. So it's a tough pill to swallow, but it was that or have a continuing deterioration as a result of not being competitive.
Are there any restrictions or rules about how that E&D is used? Limitations?
Not when you put it in the budget like we are now. If we were to need it right
Fair.
now, today, we would have to hold a special town meeting and seek your approval to use it. If we build it into our budget process and it's approved at town meeting, it's your approval to use it, how we say.
Is that stated at that meeting, $1 million being moved out of E&D to this for the purpose? Or it's just a sum?
It's just the sum at town meeting. We're asking for a budget of X. Good. Okay, so just to go over some of the numbers on a high-level perspective for our tentative budget, when you look at all of our operating and debt for our revenues, again, this is excluding our town assessments, but now we are including our E&D. You can see a drastic difference. In the slide before, I was saying we had growth of upwards of 400,000. When you incorporate our E&D, it brings it down to 91,000. Another reason you really don't want to rely on E&D to fund your operating budget, because it is very volatile and can change year over year, something that brings unneeded stress to the budget process. In terms of our expenditures year over year, our tentative budget is seeking an increase of approximately 2.3 million, or a growth rate of 5.11%. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has regulations on the way a school district presents and approves their budget. They have us categorize all our expenditures based on these DESI chart of accounts and categories. So that's how we present the budget and vote on it. How we historically manage our budget is by location or department, which is more what we look at. These are both the same charts, just different categorizations. Again, a growth rate of approximately 2.2 million, or 5.11%. Included in the presentation, I have a summary of all of our operating expense changes year over year. You can see that the biggest changes year over year are around our COLA. We have our additional COLA from FY25 because the majority of those contracts weren't settled till FY25 after our FY25 budget process was approved. So not only is our FY26 budget incorporating the FY26 COLAs, it also has to build in the additional FY25 COLAs that we received above what we budgeted. So on here, we have a lot of moving parts, and I've detailed out all of our increases and decreases that make up that $2.2 million increase year over year. That is with the COLA, correct. Oh,
hang on.
sorry.
Excuse me one sec. Sir, do you mind asking your question in the microphone? HWCAM just said they couldn't hear your questions. Just want to make sure that people at home can hear your questions.
Curious what the acronym COLA meant.
That's a cost of living adjustment. COLA is cost of living adjustment. Yep.
Sorry.
So it's a
Thank you.
percent applied to a salary the following year. Yep. I think I was done with that one. In addition, I have a summary of changes to all our staffing. This is broken out by building or department. Every year, we really go through and take a good look at each one of our buildings and try to adjust our staffing and what our demands are based on what our student needs are. You can see there's a lot of movement between buildings, and again, that's based on our student population at the time and what demands we have at each building. Year over year, we really try to be level and keep our FTEs flat. For FY '26, we do have a minor increase of a 0.88 FTE, just under just under one full-time position. This really can be attributed to a recent move-in of a student that required a one-to-one aid based on their IEP. The school committee saw this, I believe, in October or November when we asked for an additional position. This is being carried through to FY '26 to meet the demands of the current student population. That kind of concludes the public hearing. I can take any more questions if you have them.
Thank you so much. So, does anyone else have any questions, comments? You can go up to the mic and ask. No? Okay, so that concludes, I'm gonna close the public hearing, number 1, for our HW Regional School District fiscal year '26 budget. Should we wait 5 minutes to start?
Technically, we
Okay, so we'll take a recess until 7 o'clock to start the regular meeting. Okay. I call to order this meeting of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee at 7 o'clock. I invite everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So next up is citizens' comments. I just want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed, and that we also have a member attending the meeting on Zoom, Julia Campbell. So any vote we take tonight will be a roll call vote. So citizens' comments. Any citizen wishing to speak before the committee can, I'd like you to come up to the podium, identify yourself by name and address. You'll be allowed 3 minutes to present material. Can I have a timer volunteer?
Sure.
Do you mind? Thank you. And why don't we start with anybody in the room? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Maria Mahart. I live at 14 Chestnut Street. I am a teacher taxpayer in Hamilton. I work at the Miles River Middle School. And if I'm remembering correctly, it is the newest of the 5 school buildings that we have. So it's in pretty good shape. But I am here just to ask, even though I know in education, we all keep our priorities like this instead of like this, because we're passionate about what we do. But I am going to ask that we make a priority the physical structures that our children learn in every day. I know we're talking about a massive new building that has lots of promise. But until that time comes, we've got some pretty decrepit, crumbling buildings that are leaking rain, and children are tripping over buckets that are catching rain, and hearing yesterday about dead animals in the wall starting to decompose and smell at the high school. So some of the time on learning for the kids is actually time on relocating to a place where they can concentrate a little bit more and really benefit from the teaching and instruction when that's possible. I know, as Eric said earlier, that elementary schools are really packed to the gills. So when there's an issue in one classroom, there's really no place for the children or the teachers to go. So, it seems like when it rains, it pours, or if it isn't one thing, it's 2 things. And in our case, it seems like it's 10 things all at once. And I know that shoring these buildings up and keeping them in good shape is very, very expensive. But whatever you can do and whatever you think we could do as teachers to help rally some support to make these buildings better places for teaching and learning, ready and happy to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Linda Mastriani, Mastriani, and I live at 23 Maple Street. And I also teach at all 3 elementary schools. And I am really hopeful that we will get this new school. The students and the teachers are great, and we're doing really good work. But the students deserve to have schools that support and encourage their learning, and the teachers need a place that they can work as well. And I'm not looking for the Taj Mahal, but somewhere that is appropriately warm and dry and vermin-free would be a great start. So as a taxpayer and as a teacher, I am looking forward to this. I know that there are lots of thoughts around neighborhood schools, and I will admit that my parents and my children and I all went to Cutler School, and we have great memories, really, really great memories. But throughout the years, we've had lots of great memories in my family from the South School, which probably none of you have heard about, or the East School, or the high school that was on Union Street, which were all great places until they weren't. And I think that's where we are now. We have great students, great families, and we could really use a great building. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
South School was here before me.
Anyone else in the room want to offer public comment?
After the pyramids, but before, yeah, I got it.
Anybody on Zoom?
Nobody on Zoom.
Nobody on Zoom. Okay, so that concludes public comment, or citizens' comments, rather. Close the Zoom link at 7:05.
I'm gonna leave it open just because we have
For Julia,
Julia
yes,
on it.
sorry.
Yep.
Public part is closed.
Yep.
Okay, next up on the agenda are the school committee protocols. I failed to pass them out to anybody, so I will read them. Tonight, we are reading School Committee Protocol number 8. As elected members of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee, we, including the superintendent, accept the high honor and trust that has been placed in us to ensure that the students of the district receive the best education possible. To that end, we hereby commit to the following in the conduct of our business. Number 8, school committee members will vote according to their convictions, will avoid bias, and will uphold and support the decisions of the majority of the committee once a decision has been made. Positions will not be used for personal or partisan gain. Next up on the agenda is the school committee mission statement, which again, I didn't hand out to anybody, so I'll read that as well. It's only fair. The Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee's mission is to ensure our schools create graduates with a passion for lifelong learning together with the critical skills needed to maximize their potential. The Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee will lead and inspire a district that inspires all students to realize their fullest potential and feel a powerful sense of individual and collective belonging. Okay. Next up on our agenda is a word from our student representative, Whitney Fitzgibbons.
Hi everyone, I'm here tonight to talk about some of the events currently going on within the district. First at the high school, it's a sort of in-between period right now, currently with midterms coming up next week. The Environmental Club is currently selling wildflower seed packages to raise funds to support those in California affected by the wildfires. And there's also an alumni panel last Tuesday in which high school alumni came to speak with juniors and seniors about their college or after high school experiences so far. And then for clubs and sports at the high school, the boys and girls basketball teams have been very consistent this year, and the boys team actually had the opportunity to play a game at the TD Garden last Saturday against Milford, and they won 60-42. The swim team has had a successful first few meets. Gymnastics won their first meet of the season on Tuesday, and they had another one today. The ski team has also been pretty strong, with the girls team winning their first race of the season last week. And the cheer team has a competition coming up that will be hosted at the high school on February 8th, and esports is also going strong. As for clubs, student government, Spanish Culture Club, robotics, environmental club, and more are meeting frequently with strong participation. And finally, DECA is sort of starting to wind down for the year, with a state competition being held in the Seaport District in Boston from February 27th to March 1st. Next at the musical, they're currently performing SpongeBob the Musical, starting today into the weekend. There are many clubs running as well, including Homework Club, GSA, Jazz Band, Art Club, Chorale, National Junior Honor Society, and more. There's also a cross-country intramural. And then it's a little quieter at the elementary schools. At Winthrop, they have a jump rope assembly coming up on the 6th. And there's also a Rubik's Cube Club going on from now until the 6th as well. At Cutler, they have a jump rope performance also on February 6th. And then lastly, Bucher is hosting an elementary literacy night on the 28th of January, along with an elementary math night on February 8th. Thank you all, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Thank you. Anybody have questions? All right, thank you so much for that report. It's always so nice to hear what's going on in all the schools. And as Dana always says, you're welcome to stay, but we understand you probably have some stuff to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Whitney.
Okay. Next up on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything that they would like held motion, please?
Sure. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve the consent agenda as written in tonight's, meeting agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sure. After you.
Any discussion? Okay, we're gonna do a roll call vote. So we have a virtual member. We'll start with Trent.
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Amy is a yes. David?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Okay, and that passes of the 5 members present. Thank you so much, as usual, for donations. That is amazing. Next up is new business. The first being the state of the buildings report.
I think I'll jump in here. I have the opportunity to finally introduce our new Director of Facilities Operations, Maintenance, and 4,000 other things, who has been on his toes running since we hired him many months ago. So I appreciate the time he's taken to kind of go back through the former report that was presented last year and update it. And he's here tonight to go through some of that and answer some questions.
Can we second him to the basketball
Curtis
team too?
Whiteman.
Thank you, Eric. For the record, my name is Curtis Whiteman, the Director of Facilities, Maintenance, Operations. I also live in town. I'm on 27 Lee Road in South Hamilton. So a copy of the State of the Facilities report was provided as part of the agenda. I assume members of the school committee have had time to look through that. So what I really just wanted to highlight was some of the key issues that were as part of the executive summary, and then if any questions have come up, we can go through those. The big 4, one is accessibility across the district. ADA, non-ambulatory occupants, main entrances aren't adequate across our elementaries. So whether it's door width or ramps, the switches required to open the doors, we're fairly non-compliant in that regard. Mechanical systems, I'm sure all of you are aware of the current plight at the middle school, high school with the boilers. We're continuing to fight through that. They're end of life, and we're working on coming up with a solution there. And lack of cooling in air conditioning across the district. So I know this was a problem over the summer, especially with summer programs. So something that we want to definitely consider. For me, one of the biggest things, having a background in the military, is safety and security. So not only do we have a lot of alarm systems in schools that aren't working, we have blind spots with cameras, and I highly recommend that we reach out and have a study done by a security firm to come in and really look at what we could do better, especially in this climate, today's environment. I think that's very important. Finally, you heard some of the members of the community, but roof and structural integrity. So leaking roofs, really the high school's at the end of its life, and we are pursuing options through the MSBA there to get that as part of their ARP program. Middle school's right behind it. We unfortunately are not eligible for another couple of years to replace that. And Bucher here in this school, particularly the flat roof, needs to be replaced as well. So that's really the big 4. I don't know if there's any questions on those or anything else that's in the report that I can help clarify for the committee or whoever.
Have any questions? Anyone have questions?
I'm sorry.
Good. No, just asking if you have questions.
My understanding, you're at the very beginning of a study that National Grid is sponsoring. Can you give us any insight into what exactly they'll be doing?
So he reached out to me and Eric a couple weeks ago, I believe, and I reached out back to him. We're playing a little bit of email tag right now. So my thought is they're going to come in and do a full energy audit based off just what is the limited literature in the email. So I'm hoping for some more information on that. A part of the report, a lot of what I have in here is around building automation, so I'm hoping that they offer some solutions for that. Lighting, HVAC controls, things like that. So
I'm hoping that to your issue of there's no cooling in the schools, that they'll also be looking at the energy trade-offs of using heat pump kind of technologies. But both of the town halls are doing a complete makeover. I don't know whether you know that. Spending about $1.5+ million each. using actually probably the most expensive, the geothermal kind of
Sure.
heat pumps. But it struck me that that was one of the options that would involve trading off on both sides of the equation.
Sure.
The cost versus the utility of having cooling and effective classroom control.
Absolutely. No, I
I think
agree.
that's going to be part of it.
I agree, and I hope it is. I'll be transparent with Eric and Vinny and the committee about what is presented, and we'll obviously seek the best solution that we can, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you and welcome. We're excited to have you. In going through the report, which is very detailed, I didn't see any mention of the water quality report that was done on the district. I don't know if you've seen that or incorporated that into your thoughts of recommendations moving forward.
So, I'm not a water expert, so I wouldn't know, but we did have water testing done by the town of Wenham and Hamilton. I also know that we reached out independently and had our own water testing done, so I think me and Eric have the results of that. I have not reviewed those. My recommendation would be to bring in an expert that could tell us what those mean and action that accordingly.
Yeah, I would agree.
From the water, from the water perspective, I think one of the things to note is the towns have different cycles. So the town of Wenham does the Bucher School. They actually do schools, preschools in their community, and they do them on these rotational basis. So one town does once every so many years, and then the other town does once in different cycle of years. So one's a 6-year cycle. I think the
you're
Wenham
talking
one
about-
is coming up in 2026.
Yep.
And they specifically
That's right.
test for lead and copper. And
Is this inside the school or
Yeah,
delivering to the
inside the
edge of the school? Okay.
inside the school.
And to be noted, they take the worst absolute case possible, so they do it first thing in the morning before anything has ran, they take the sample. So they actually did it over the summer here at Bucher.
Yes,
the la-
yeah, I'm aware.
And the last test for the high school, Winthrop and Cutler was 2021. So we're coming back up around on that one.
Okay, where are those published? I was unable to find them way back when we went ahead and did the summit.
So they were done by the towns. So we actually had to reach out to the towns. Curtis reached out to the towns and got the latest results, which aren't really the latest because one was done in 21 and one
Yeah.
was done in 20. So
Mm-hmm.
we were able to get those from the towns. I wasn't here at the time as the superintendent, so I'm not sure.
So back then, since I haven't seen those, if you've looked at them, did any school have, for example, any trace of lead?
So just looking at the reports, it didn't appear that there were anything outside the normal limits. So everything was either at or below.
My read of it was that there's 1.5 parts per billion lead in Winthrop only. All the rest were lead-free. And 1.5 is 1.5 more than the American Academy of Pediatrics thinks is acceptable.
You're talking about the town reports?
Pardon?
You're talking about the town reports?
Yeah,
Okay.
this most recent report. No, I
Town
don't.
reports, though, not the one, yeah.
Yeah, that
Town
was.
reports, I believe, are the ones that we're talking about.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the most recent report, which I think Vinny.
That was not the town one.
That's right, okay. Who actually did that?
I can get the company's name. I don't
Okay.
know off the top of my head. But I think it was on what we sent, but pull it up.
So, just to clarify, so we have had multiple different samplings and testing of the water. The ones that we've all seen recently look like they were done in 2024. And
Correct.
so which ones are we talking about? Those are the independent ones.
Mailed to everyone last week.
Okay.
The ones that everybody received at the request
Right.
of Mr. Frankel are the independent reports. We've recently received, through the work of Curtis with the towns, the 2020 and the 2021 reports that were done by the towns. And they do that for all of the school buildings, including private preschools and other schools that are in the community, not just the Bucher School or not just the high school, middle school. So it's a standard practice for the towns. We have learned about it as Curtis has been digging in, trying to figure out ways. I think he was initially trying to figure out how to get some more water bottle fill stations with filtering built into it.
Yeah, the filtering would make a
Because you
difference.
can get those for just about free from a number of vendors through the federal government programs and some state programs. One of the things you need is this testing that's done by the towns for lead and copper. So that's the reason we started to pursue this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think
That's
that's
correct, yeah, yeah.
So.
That was kind of an EPA dictate, I think, nationally, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. The money ran out on the EPA side. I think there's a number of smaller groups and smaller grants that are still available, but I think the EPA, if I remember correctly, ran out at the end of 2023, because we did years ago get at least one, maybe two water bottle fillers for the middle school and the high school back in the maybe 22, or maybe it might have been even earlier, but I'm just, we've been involved in that program, and through Curtis's work, he's reached out to Vicky Massoni and tracked down some of the things with the towns that we were not fully aware of. So he's been able to help us to nail that down and get that moving in the right direction.
It does seem to me that there's a need for a true expert to take a look and advise us, because apart from the lead, there were some things there that I was quite surprised at, like quite high levels of chloroform, which seemed kind of weird, above stated standard levels. And there was a couple of other chemicals there that I can barely pronounce. There's too many syllables.
Right, I was going to say, yeah, there's some
that
we always wonder about. But the committee would have to direct us and figure out how to fund that. But
yeah, well, there may be available resources at Department of Health, because Department of Health will do a free assessment, for example, of air quality. I don't know what facilities. I've not inquired as to what
you're
facilities
talking
they
about local
provide.
or
No, at the
level?
state level.
Okay,
Great.
we can check.
Okay, any other questions for Curtis? Sorry, this is not public comment time. Any other questions about? the
Just related to this.
Yeah.
So has Curtis received the reports that were forwarded to us?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So Curtis, knowing that nobody here is a water quality expert, would you be able to, in your next report, address the water quality reports that were forwarded?
Be
to you?
happy to, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
excellent.
absolutely.
Excellent. Any other questions?
No, thank you for the great diligence and detail in here. Appreciate that, really.
Appreciate it.
Good to meet you.
Thank you for your time.
I think it's important to note that Curtis has been standing in front of a tidal wave since he walked in the door. So he's literally been digging through old piles of stuff, cleaning stuff out, trying to organize things like plans for the building so that we have them in places that are A, accessible, B, dry, and so that they're useful, and even things like looking for previous testing that's been done on anything. And really, this even includes trying to figure out electricity usage in the buildings. Can we carry what we're carrying on the electricity coming in the building? So he's done a lot of work, and I really appreciate having him on the team as a member of the team, and look forward to continuing to work on all these things with him. So thank you, Curtis.
Terrific. Big
Appreciate it.
step
Thank you.
forward.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, next up is a vote on school choice. Do you have an exhibit? Should we just make a motion?
It's just a motion to either accept or not accept school choice for the 25-26 school year.
Excuse me. All right, I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee vote to approve to continue in the school choice.
Probably accept.
Accept, I'm sorry. Vote to accept the school choice, to participate in school choice.
Second.
Second by Trent. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay. Well, oh, sorry.
Just can we add for the record 25-26 school year?
That's, yeah, I actually meant to. But someone was very, very excited to
Oh.
second for the 2025, 25-26 school
25,
year.
yeah, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You still second that?
I get beat every time. I have to wait for there to be key absences to be able to get in.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yep.
Any discussion on voting school choice? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Start with Trent.
Yes.
Julia.
Yes.
Amy is a yes. David Plato.
Yes.
David Frankel.
Yes.
Okay, and that passes.
Thank you.
Yeah, 5 members present. Thank you. Great. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is competency determination for a class of 25 and beyond. Mr. Tracy.
Thank you. I need to do this from here only because I'm connected to the owl, so everybody will be able to see it on the presentation. But as you know, in the most recent election,
Oh, I can see it, and I can get the attachment or the exhibit from the,
No, it's
what's
okay.
it called?
I just can't
Agenda.
disconnect from I can't disconnect from the owl, so we're okay. The last election, in Massachusetts, the MCAS requirement for graduation was voted down by the people, and that has put the public school systems in a precarious situation of figuring out how to continue to meet the federal law. So I want to do a quick overview for you of what has occurred. And realistically, there's some new language in the statute that talks about competency determinations and graduation requirements, and what was removed as measured by the assessment instruments described in Section 1. That is all gone, which Section 1 talks about an MCAS type assessment. And now it is switched to what you see in red on the screen: by satisfactorily completing coursework that has been certified by the student's district as showing mastery of the skills, competencies, and knowledge contained in the state academic standards and curriculum frameworks in the areas measured by the MCAS high school test described in Section 1, administered in 2023, and in any additional areas determined by the board. Fascinating language. It just really puts the burden on each school district to come up with their own graduation requirement. So there's still a legal requirement for a graduation requirement, and it's just not MCAS. So I just want people to understand that that requirement's still there. So we talked we've had several meetings with the Department of Education, and they've given us a little bit of guidance to kind of kick things off for districts. And then some of the things that they have given us in one of their FAQs and through some of the conversations we've had with them in online meetings. You have to be aligned with the new language of the statute that allows the district to demonstrate students have met the new requirements. The new requirements are they competent and proficient in order to get a diploma? That, unfortunately, is going to look very different for every single school system. So we're pushing from the superintendency to try to say we need some alignment here because it'll look different in Lee, Massachusetts, or on the Cape. It's going to be different. We're already seeing some of the examples pop up. Whatever we decide on has to be approved by the school committee. It'll be shared with the students, guardians, and district stakeholders. We do that with our handbook at the high school level, which is generally where the graduation requirement comes in. It has to be publicly available in multiple languages. We put everything in 11 languages now, I think 12 actually, so not a concern there. We just wanted to review some of the current promotion requirements. Students, just to move through, and I'm going to use the high school as the example, assuming the kids have made it through all the way to 8th grade. The high school becomes kind of a credit collection exercise where kids must earn at least 5 credits during their freshman year, which is really 5 full-time classes. Summer school credits can be included. We generally don't have a lot of kids who go to summer school. And the same thing as you go into your junior year, you have to earn 10 credits. You have to have earned a total of 10 credits during freshman and sophomore years. And then a senior, you have to have a total of 17 credits, which gives kids some flexibility. People always say to me, well, why isn't 20? Well, because what happens senior year is kids go like this and they spread out and start to take courses that they're interested in and courses that they feel like might prepare them for whatever college experience they're looking for. So those are current requirements. The credit requirements require 24 credits to graduate. So different than the promotion requirements, you only need 5 each year up until the senior year, and then a total of 17 to actually move through the years. But to graduate, we have a total of 24 credits that are required, and this is a combination of full one-year classes, which are 1 credit, and a combination of 2 half-year classes could be 1 credit as well. So we have a number of courses at the high school that are 1 year and half-year credit, so kids can again assemble those so that they get 24 credits. If you do the quick math, you know, if you look at a 7-period day for kids, they could take 7 classes and get credits in each of those, and do that all 4 years, and end up with many more credits than they actually need. So it gives them some flexibility in their schedule to do things like internships, which our graduation requirements now allow. And then community service is still on the book, so this really outlines where we're at. The red is the part that we will remove. I left it in here because it's still current with this graduation class, because they had taken the MCAS. All of our seniors who are in alignment to graduate have passed the MCAS requirements, so not a problem for us this year. There are a number of schools in the Commonwealth who are wrestling with kids that have not passed MCAS and they don't have competency determination requirements in place yet. So we don't have that issue. We're actually in a good place to take the time to review this and look at it carefully.
Question. Is there any intent to continue to give the MCAS just to give you some normalization data?
Yeah, the MCAS doesn't go away. I'm going to get that 1 second.
Okay.
The MCAS doesn't go away. This is just a slide with the piece that we're going to pull out of the current language. There may probably also be some additions, and to answer your question, Mr. Frankel, here we are. MCAS is still required, so kids in 3rd grade through 10th grade will still take these assessments. It's still going to be used by the state for accountability. A little bit worrisome for school districts because the lack of the graduation requirement takes away the seriousness of the assessment. So now the state's going to be using this kind of flawed accountability system. Those are my own words. I will take note that I said them. I believe it's a flawed accountability system when you don't have really the stringent requirements of making it connected to graduating. So that's still in play, and that's an important piece to keep in mind. Students who would not be on track for graduation this year would not be eligible to graduate until their districts put something in place. Every community is working on this. Every superintendent meeting I've been to has been the buzz. It's been the buzz on what we're doing, what they're doing. I've noticed a number of school districts have said, if you pass English 9 and 10 and Algebra 1 and Geometry, then you're eligible to graduate. I think we're going to look a little bit beyond that to make sure that we have good competency determination to make sure kids are eligible to receive the diploma from the community. Which brings me to my next slide, which is the plan moving forward. As I said, the 2025 are all set. We're not worried about them. They will get their diplomas in in May this year. That I just realized was moved. And then the high school principal would do the work with his staff to figure out what makes sense for competency determination for students in the class of 2026 and beyond. That will be done in mass with that staff. It will come to this committee for discussion, and then ultimately the committee will have to approve some form of competency determination based on those discussions.
Quick question.
Yep.
What do you do if they pass MCAS but don't pass your point system?
They're not eligible to graduate if they don't have the 24 credits. So if a kid had 20 credits at the last day of senior year, they would not be eligible to graduate.
Even though they passed MCAS?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, because it's a combination of both. One of the questions that came up several times was, since MCAS is still at play, could a community choose to still use MCAS as a competency determination? The state has said yes. We're just concerned about the validity of the assessments moving forward. And then we'll continue this work in alignment with the program of studies that the school committee usually gets to see right around late June. And those things should all mesh so that we have it ready for the start of the school year. And then we'll do final
Thank you.
approval,
Thank you.
which will coincide with the student handbook. I just wanted to give a quick overview. There's nothing for us to dig into yet, but we will at some point.
I have a question.
Yep.
Is there any issue of kind of turnover of the, say, current sophomores and juniors that we would have concerns about in light of, removing this requirement? Or it doesn't matter, because they'll earn credits anyway?
You're talking about kids that might not be eligible to graduate because of the lack of credits?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Would have otherwise.
So the high school really does a lot of work. It starts now where there are emails already flying out saying, if you have a kid in your class who's not doing well, we need to know, and the guidance counselors start doing individual meetings. There's a lot of work done on the ground to make sure kids are ready to graduate. As you know, our graduation rate is very high, so it's not generally an issue. We do have sometimes one or two kids that do need to they may have to take a class in summer school, and then they'll get the diploma at the end of the summer. Some kids stay for another year because they need to or they want to, and that's okay too, so.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions? Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for that. Okay, next on the agenda is town election information. You want me to take this?
Want me to do it?
Okay.
I can do it.
Okay.
As we know, the annual town meeting brings also the town elections, and this information that's on the agenda is for public consumption so that people understand when things are happening, including the annual town meeting on April 5th, the annual town election on Thursday, April 10th, and then it has a number of registration, last day to register to vote dates to get out there to people. When nomination papers are available, they are available. They were available as of this past Monday. The last day to submit them is February 20th, which is it's a Thursday, and then the last day to object or withdraw is on March 10th. Those library papers for any of these positions can be picked up at the town clerk's offices. The elected bodies that are available across the towns, select board, there's 3-year terms, 2 positions available in Hamilton. Town moderator, 1-year term is available. Board of Assessors, there's a 3-year term, single seat. Planning board, 3-year term, 3 seats. Library trustees, there's a 3-year seat, 1 seat. In the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee, 3-year, 3 seats. That is for Hamilton. And let me, 1 second, I'll swap to Wenham, see if I can get on their stuff. And the ballot for Wenham will include Board of Assessors, 3-year term, 1 seat. Board of Health, 3-year term, 1 seat. Select Board, 3-year term, 2 seats. Hamilton-Wenham Library Board, that's the single seat I talked about. It's a 3-year term. School Committee, 3-year terms. Planning Board, 5-year term, 1 seat, and then an interesting Planning Board 4-year term, 1 seat, and then 2 Water Commission seats available, 1 3-year, 1 2-year, and then 1 2-year Housing Authority and 1 3-year Housing Authority available. So those are the positions that are open. Anybody can grab these either off of our agenda this evening or in any of the town websites.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next up is finance and operations. Vinny, show us
Gonna switcheroo.
another budget.
A different budget.
Beating the clock very well.
Thank you.
Oops, I lost Julia. Hold on. You still there, Julia?
Getting a feeling of deja vu with this budget.
She's there, okay. Thought I lost her.
Feeling of deja vu with this budget.
Yeah.
This is my 9th one.
Exactly.
Getting better at it.
So much faster.
Up before this time.
And Vinny, will you just explain
Yes.
the difference between this version and the version we looked at earlier this
Yep.
evening? Thanks.
So the version earlier that, for the public hearing was the tentative budget, which was the last budget before this one that the school committee saw on January 2nd. Every school committee meeting, pretty much since the budget starts, we update the budget pretty much every meeting and incorporate our changes that we worked on from the prior 2 weeks. So this is the update and all the changes that we've gone through since January 2nd.
Thank you.
So tonight, I'm presenting the superintendent's updated tentative FY26 budget recommendation. So again, I'm just going to briefly go over the changes from the budget you saw on January 2nd to where we are today, and then take any questions. So like every year, the last thing we want to do is ask for an override. So our attempt is always to avoid that. So we went through our budget again and tried to reduce every way we could to get that number down below the threshold. So some updates tonight, again, are on both the revenue sides and our expenditure sides. So from the tentative budget to today's updated, we are seeing an increase of approximately $40,000 for our tuition in accounts. This is a special ed student that is not a Hamilton Wenham student. They're a resident from another school district, whether it's Ipswich, Gloucester, or somewhere else, that is tuitioning into our district. This usually saves money for the sending district and generates a revenue source for the receiving district. Taking this student in did not increase the need for any staff and was a minimal increase to our supplies and materials. So it really is a generating revenue source for the district, so that does lower the overall assessment and the overall tax burden to the community by that $39,000. In terms of our transportation reimbursement is a calculation based on the prior year amount we spent on transportation, and that is directly related to all students that are transported above 1.5 miles. If they're below 1.5 miles, the state does not reimburse you for any of your expenses. So at the end of every year, we go through a massive reporting scheme to the state, which includes all of our transportation expenditures and breaks them out below and above that 1.5 miles. Once that's verified and the state builds their budget, they then reimburse you a percentage of those expenditures. You don't get all of them back, you only get a percentage back. That end-of-year report was a little late this year. We completed it in the end of November, beginning of December, and went through basically a 3-week verification process. When it came back, we had our final numbers. After I roll it forward for FY26, it ultimately meant a $46,000 increase, which again directly comes off the town assessments as it's an outside revenue source. In addition to our increases in revenues, we went through our expenditures and tried to decrease where we could. We do have a $5,000 reduction to our athletic contracted services. This relates to the new athletic turf field. There is netting that is going to be back there that when we first built the budget, we thought we had to hire someone to take the netting down and store it for the winter. After consultation with the manufacturer and other school districts, we are able to leave those up, so we don't need to pay for them to be taken down or for them to be stored. So we reduced our budget for $5,000 related to the storage of those nets. And again, an attempt to close the gap between where we were in that override threshold, we are reducing our administrative salary contingencies for any newly hired administrators next year by approximately $6,000. Earlier this year, I implemented a new Social Security tax liability. So regional school districts and many municipalities and governments don't contribute to Social Security because we have pensions. We have been contributing to Social Security for our non-pensionable employees since I got here. This year, I finally had time to implement a BenCor FICA alternative plan. That means the employee is still contributing into a tax shelter annuity. However, the school district does not have to match those funds. So we feel confident that our Social Security tax liability will be reduced in FY26. I do anticipate it will be more than the $10,000. However, I'm waiting for a full year to pass to realize all of those savings, as we do have a lot of non-pensionable employees that join us over the summertime. The state did update our school choice out numbers, so this would be students that do reside in Hamilton or Wenham that do not choose to go to our school district. They go to another school district, Ipswich, Gloucester, Beverly. We have 2 less students going out, just like our school choice in. When we receive $5,000 per student, if we send a student out, it costs us $5,000 per student. So with those 2 less students going out, we reduced our school choice out by $10,000. Last week, I did update you on our retirement savings. I neglected at the time to reduce those retirees' longevity payments. When scrubbing through all of our expenditures to fall under that override, I realized that I needed to zero out their longevity, so I zeroed out those 5 people, which reduced our budget by another $11,000. Again, in an attempt to close the gap, we lowered our teacher professional development funds for our tentative budget and for all prior budgets before this, at least for the past 6 years. The school district has always budgeted $250 per teacher FTE for professional development money. We reduced that to $150 per FTE, which ultimately equated to an $18,000 reduction to our budget. Stacy Busick, the Director of Student Services, gave us an updated out-of-district tuitions projection for FY26. It contained 1 less anticipated out-of-district student, which ultimately reduced our overall out-of-districts by $80,000. Last but not least is a reduction to our health insurance. This is a moving target. I met with NFP, our insurance broker, and Harvard Pilgrim, our insurance carrier. We went over our loss ratios and how we are doing in terms of the benefits that Harvard Pilgrim is pushing out for our employees. At the moment, we are running well, so they notified us to expect a lower than anticipated premium on our insurance rate increase. That ultimately meant a $105,000 reduction to our health insurance, which equates to basically a 1% decrease in our health insurance premium increase every year. So from the tentative budget till now, these are the updates that we've made, and the towns both reported to us last night that with these reductions, it does drop us under that override mark for now at least. So just to review the revenues at this point, we are seeing revenues outside of our assessment coming in at approximately $9.6 million, which is an increase of roughly $216,000 or 2.3% over the prior year, again excluding the town assessments. In terms of our operating and debt service budget in gross form, year over year, we are at this time requesting an increase of $1.9 million, which is a growth rate of 4.08%. You can see the 3rd line down on the top has the biggest increase. This is our teachers category. Obviously, like I said in the public hearing, it has to do with our new collective bargaining agreements and those new cost of living adjustments that were agreed to. Just to point out, that is not where all of our teachers reside. This is that DESE category chart that I was talking about. DESE classifies teachers in a certain way. We have about 30 other employees that are covered by the teachers' collective bargaining agreement that don't necessarily fall in the teachers' category. In that category, you can see there's 152 FTEs. The people covered by that category is more like 190, so they are spread out in other categories. So there is more than that 1.5. It's about that 2.3 million that I mentioned earlier. And just to point out again, that capital and fixed asset improvements is our biggest reduction at $1 million, which again is that E&D offset. This is that same chart, but based on our site and support program or our school or department. Again, I've broken out a summary of all of our changes that now reconciles to the new 1.9 million that we are asking for year over year. And we have here that same chart that we saw earlier, our summary of all of our changes. asking for an additional 0.88 increase for next year. So just as a final reminder, this is the last meeting before our vote on February 6th for the final budget. That vote does require a supermajority of the whole committee. So at this time, if there aren't any questions or if there are any recommendations, if there are no changes anyone is requesting from the quintuple board meeting, the chances of us bringing the numbers you see here into the February 6th meeting, unless we hear otherwise, is probably what we will be requesting in our final budget.
Question, sorry, I'm not familiar with what constitutes a super majority.
66%.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone have questions? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, as always, Benny, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
FY26, we're paying down expenditures with E&D to get below an override. FY27, all things being constant without some unusual windfall, are we expecting to put a budget in front of the town that would likely constitute a need for an override?
That would be a question we put forth to you guys before the budget process starts. Are we going to put forth a budget that requires an override, or are we going to try to make reductions to fall under it? That we would ask you that before we even start the budget process next year.
What are the sizes of reductions that we would have to make to be able
If
to
all
avoid an
things were
override?
equal, it's, again, don't quote me on it because a lot of things can change, but it
You're
would
on
be that
camera,
yeah, it would be that E&D amount of $2 million.
2 million?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, what would that be in teacher headcount if it was?
So that's a very tough one. It would not be an entire teacher. There wouldn't be one union or department that doesn't get hit. It would not be all teachers. Just for comparison reasons, this happened to us during COVID. We had about a $1.2 million reduction, and at that time, it meant about 20 staff members. So
1.2 minutes, 20 staff. Okay.
it also hit a lot of other areas that didn't directly relate to salaries, but that's just to give you a rough idea of what we're talking about.
Thank you.
It's important to know, too, that when you're looking at situations or times of having to cut, remember the salary scales, how they work. You know, the way the union contracts work and the salary scales work, you're cutting your lowest paid employees. So you end up not gaining a lot. I mean, gain 56,000, I think we're at the lowest step, versus somebody at the higher step. It's just the way the system works. And when we start to look at cuts, those are the impact points. So there may be, just use two departments, and I'm not picking on a department, but if I had, math and science, and the lowest paid teacher in science that, if we decided to cut was making 80,000 and the lowest paid teacher in English making 56, that's the variation you could see in cuts. So that's why Vinny says it's hard to pin down, because you could be looking at secretarial staff who's making 30,000, or nursing staff that's making more than that, twice as much as that, So it's a moving target until you actually get there, when you start to look at, okay, what are the things we want to look at? And we would look at as many things as possible that are not salary related. We want to keep our teachers and keep them in place, but there's only so far you can go in a tiny school district.
Right. Well, part of the trade-off in the end becomes facilities improvement,
Yeah.
new facilities. What I haven't got in my head yet quite how to make that trade-off. That's harking back to the comment yesterday from one of the I think select board members, is that it's a bunch of priority choices and how to make them visible. For example, when
David, I can't hear you.
oh, I'm sorry. When would the cost of the school actually hit the annual budget?
28.
28 or 29.
28 or 29. Okay.
2028 or 2029, that's when the first payment on debt would be.
And roughly, what would that be?
It depends on how you look at it. So the debt schedules work differently for different projects. You can take out debt in a straight payment, which means you're making the same payment every year for, just use a cycle of 20 years. You can take out a reducing payment that starts out high and drops down over the 20 years. You can also do a debt schedule where you're only taking debt to cover the expenses that you need for that particular year, which makes it kind of move all over the place, but does help in the kind of the initial stages. The initial stages are generally the highest. The first 10 years are usually the highest, as we probably saw with the middle school when they built
So
it.
how can we make those modelling choices visible to taxpayers? Well, to us for a start. and then
Yeah,
to
we've been working with John McGrath on the FinCom in Hamilton a lot. We've started to work with Phineas Sprague, who's the FinCom chair at Wenham. We are waiting for the state to give us our updated reimbursement number. They do it in January, and it's usually the second or third week in January. We don't want to move forward with a number that's not the number in 2 weeks. So we're trying to nail that number down. We've also gained 5.76 incentive points on top of whatever we get for our reimbursement rate. So once we get that, then they go through a schedule of reimbursables, like what the state qualifies as something they would reimburse the community for. And then they go through and say, all right, these are the reimbursables, and this is how much square footage gets reimbursed in that calculation. So we will have that number soon, and we plan to continue to work with both towns to get those things out there to people well before we get to town meeting. We're hopefully targeting to have something out as late as the next few weeks, just to get it out there in public. And we're also going to work on some tax calculators so people can put their individual properties in and figure out roughly what the impact will be. It really depends on how we choose to finance. If it gets approved, and how we choose to finance is really different. You could say, all right, we want to make it a 30-year note and drag it out, but the problem you do with that is you're usually making repairs on the facility before you even finish paying for the original build. So we generally recommend we generally recommend 20 years for anything, and I think that's a generally a good way to go. But sometimes communities will say we would rather stretch it out so that the burden of the taxpayer is less. The problem you run into is your interest payments start to take off when you do that too. So there's a lot of scenarios to look at with the towns and try to figure out what the best approach would be, whether we go in that direction or could be anything. Even if we're talking about just replacing a roof, those are multi-million-dollar jobs, and those are debts that get taken out over time.
Yeah, what concerns me, there's another big variable, is the cost. The cost may be severely impacted by the rebuild in California. Labor and materials, I think, are going to be nationally under a lot of pressure, because that is a massive rebuild.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult model to model.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just wanted to jump in to respond in sequence to these parts of the conversation. First, around, that $2 million and what that looks like. I think that, to your point of how difficult it is to make cuts, it's the job of this committee to make sure that we don't ever get there, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's like the most important work that we're going to
Agreed.
do over the next 2 years, is that whatever that looks like in 2027 passes. And then to the question about when we're going to be promulgating information on the tax cuts, I was surprised last night to learn that this had already been run for one cost of a home and put up online, and I think that that's excellent if you happen to own a home that's $789,000, right?
Right.
I do wonder if it would be of the interest of this district to not put up a calculator, but to put a mailer out for each home that is going to be impacted by this. This is what the estimate is going to be. Because we do that for other things,
Yeah.
right? And if we're developing the tax calculator, then it's really just about printing the data that would be there.
Yeah.
And what I don't know, because John didn't say it yesterday, is if this is like a linear relationship, right? If you're able to say, well, it's $1,800 a year for a house that's $789, which means if it's a house that's $689, then it's just a proportional decrease. My guess is it's not, otherwise that would be too easy, right? But that means that we have to have some kind of complexity that's built in to be able to get people accurate numbers.
agreed.
And I think the best way to do that would be to send it right to every person and say this is what to expect.
And I can have that conversation with the towns too. John has been really good. John's been on top of it since day one. He's been really into the numbers. He's been trying to figure out the best ways to present the scenarios, how things should look to the public, how things, you know, he basically just keeps putting information out there. So the best source has been John. Not 100% accurate because it changes so much,
Sure.
which is part of the secondary problem. Somebody goes to the website and sees the original price of 150 million when it's currently 143 million.
I think the bigger problem is, like, how would you even know to go to the website?
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm on the town newsletter, right? I try to follow the happenings across the different committees such that I'm here, but not a clue that was published on the website back in April, right?
Yeah.
And so if if you're not involved at all because, you know, you have kids at home and you're, working and have all these other things, I think that the burden of getting the information is really on us to them, right?
Yeah, we can work with the towns.
I think the other aspect of building a proper forward-looking view over the next 10, 15, 20 years is the work that's just been begun by the new facilities director, which is what, to the complaint that was made yesterday, what improvements can we and should we make with and without the new school?
Yep.
How do we budget for that? How do we plan for it? Because I don't think we have a coherent plan yet that deals with all that and raises the standard for all students and teachers. So what process would you like to see that would get us that kind of plan and that kind of budget forward-looking look? Again, because it's going to be a priority choice for the town first of all, and then for this committee.
Yeah, every capital project is a priority choice, not only in the district. Okay, we're going to do a roof first, but it's also for the community, because those capital purchases or expected purchases need to go to town meeting every single time. We can't just say, I'm going to drop $2 million over here. We have to really be transparent about that. So it's really incumbent on us to take the new list we've generated that Curtis presented tonight and start to
build it out,
aggregate that, and then look at what that looks like outside of, building or no building. Just take that off the table. Where do we go from here, I guess, is your question. So that's part of the planning that Curtis will be doing over the next probably 6 months.
Yeah, I want to see it more like a smorgasbord than rather an a la carte menu with no prices on it in a high-priced restaurant.
Yep.
But, just so that we can give an honest answer to how we going to avoid this deterioration issue really affecting and impacting learning, absenteeism, and all those things.
Yeah.
So any other questions about this budget before we move
The words
on?
right out of my mouth. Everyone wants to talk about the school. How about the budget?
Any questions,
Okay.
Julia?
Are there any questions? Because this will be what we present.
Last chance. Okay. Thank you so much, Vinny. No questions?
Thank you, guys.
Excellent.
None left.
All right.
But thank you again.
Next up are committee reports. Anything from Capital Financial Planning Subcommittee?
I can report on that. If I can pull up my minutes from the last meeting. We did another look at the FY26 budget in great detail. I was nominated to be on the Capital Improvement Project Subcommittee, Advisory Board, and I accepted.
Congratulations.
Ergo, I'm on the Capital Improvement Project Advisory Board.
Okay.
And then we adjourned.
Okay. Do you have a future meeting planned?
We
There's one on
do.
the books.
Exact
Yeah.
date.
There is one on the books.
There is one. I think it's right before February vacation.
Okay. policy subcommittee, I will take that one. We're still arranging a meeting time. So I'll send out an email just to remind everybody.
This is reminding me that I forgot to.
Say that. Okay. And Eric, I don't know, do you want to attend that next meeting?
Policy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Just let me know when it is. Yep.
Great. And negotiations subcommittee, anything to report?
The next two are negotiations. No, we haven't been up to anything lately.
Okay.
And the secretary's report, I did reach out to Janelle, and we're playing a little bit of tag. We're putting a report together, but it's just not ready tonight.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report?
Sure. Just a couple of quick items. The first one is, whenever the students are here, they always get some of my report, but it's worth repeating. SpongeBob tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday. The middle school, always a fun time to go to the events at the schools. I think one of the events I went to last week that was interesting was the panel that Whitney talked about. There was six former students who came back to speak with seniors about their experience going to college. And the interesting thing was there were some kids who were in the States in college, but two kids who are in Europe in college. So they were able to talk a little bit about the differences, and kids were able to ask them questions about, okay, what's this experience like? Where are we heading? And so that was interesting. And then the kind of the big news for all of our high school kids during Martin Luther King week is always mid-year exams. So if you can't find your child who goes to the high school, they're probably studying during that time. So it's a big time. It's a stressful time for the kids, but it also marks the end of the halfway point of the school year. So we're a little more than a week away from the halfway point of the school year, which is exciting to try and, as you come through this colder weather, get into hopefully a little bit warmer weather for the rest of the year. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. And I don't have anything for the chair's report, so I'll move to any topics for future meetings I can pass along.
Just the next meeting, I'd like to offer the response to Dana's
Okay.
riff.
Yeah, I think I made a note for next meeting, just more generally speaking, if everybody could maybe think about preparing ideas for procedures to respond to actions of committee members when procedural questions arise. So kind of similar to your topic. Anything else?
Just asking the new facilities director to respond to the water quality reports.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, because of the enormity of the expenditures that are going into facilities, I'd love to recommend that he reports updates pretty much at every meeting we have, because clearly is very, very industrious, very active, and I'm guessing that there's going to be new actions pretty much on a regular basis.
Okay.
Yeah, you're looking at 30 years of deterioration and lack of upkeep that's now caught up, and no matter what direction we end up going in April, we still have to deal with the issues that are facing our kids every day in their classrooms. So yeah, you're right.
At least for 4 years at the very least in 2 of the schools and in all the rest.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, any other topics for future meetings? Julia, you're all set? All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'll move a motion to return. To adjourn, as I think is the word I'm looking for.
8:08.
Have a second? Yep.
Second.
There you go. Okay, meeting adjourned at 8:09 now p.m.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you, Julia.
Good to see you. Thanks so much for your hard work on the budget. Can't wait to vote on it. All right, thank you all.